found out some pretty big info. So, you know what I released about the animal box in my other clip video? You might have seen it. But the animal box, when that thing is knocked over and it's making those noises, it will rapidly respawn enemies and make them come to it, which is a pretty big issue. So I have all of my spawns set on ducks. Only ducks can spawn in my game, just for ease of testing. And I'm just going to show you the actual effect of this for all items that make noise, because it's not just the box. Every item that makes noise has an effect on this. I'm pretty sure that even player noise, like TTS or talking, has a very minor impact. You don't have to worry about it too much, because I did test it and it was very small. But I'm just going to show you here. I'm going to fully go over how the first test works, and then we can speed up the next ones. But I have this mod here, this spawn enemy mod, that allows me to show the current enemies spawned in. Now, these are all deactivated, so they would not be led over even if I were to knock this over, because in the first part of the game, enemies are dormant, and you must go within a certain range to activate them. And they also spawn at the furthest possible spot when you first load into a map. So I'm just going to not do that and just kill them with these buttons. So in the first 10 minutes, the respawn timer, if a monster is killed, is from 15 minutes down to 12 minutes. So I'll have to remake the game pretty frequently to keep the game within the first 10 minutes to get a fairly stable test timing. So these enemies should be dead for about 15 minutes. I'm just going to knock this box over. You can just wait in real time to see when they respawn. They're already back. That was 15 minutes. Whoa, calm down, box. 15 freaking minutes. And they're here. They're coming. It's duck time. Now for another crazy one. I did not expect this. The ice saw is kind of insane. Look at how fast this is. Yeah, so watch this. It should still be around 14 minutes. I'm gonna hold it through the wall here. From a stopwatch test I did, I got roughly 40 seconds of respawn timer reduced per second you're holding the ice saw. So this thing is insanely dangerous if you don't want mobs to respawn. If you do, then it's amazing, because you're forcing mobs to respawn without even damaging it. Because using the animal box like that very rapidly depletes its durability unless you have an indestructible drone on it. But the ice saw, you pick that thing up, it is going. They are coming. Now, this doesn't have a global draw like the box does, seemingly, but this does have a decently sized aggro radius. Let me just respawn them here. Already back. So enemies will investigate this noise if it's within enough proximity to them. You can see that I can kind of conduct to the duck area. He doesn't even know I'm here. Oh, more ducks. So I'm just going to go down all of the possible things in the game that make any noise at all and attempt to see how big of an impact they have on the respawn time. I'm going to put the indestructible drone on Mr. Chomp Book here. Set this... Set the ducks to dead. I'll just let the book eat me. Ooh, you can't make it re-chomp. Okay, I'm gonna need more chomp books. Chomp books turned out to be insignificant in terms of timer reduction. Okay, let's try the little frogs. Just set up Mr. Froggies with their protecty drones and set them free. So that was about 50 seconds worth of 3 frogs jumping, and it cut off 14 minutes of respawn time. Okay, now for a music box. Oh, finally. I was considering giving up. Another thing I will have to check the timing of in the post. Okay, so 2 entire minutes of holding this thing cut out 13 minutes of respawn time because 2 of the minutes were actually real time. So that is 6.5 minutes of respawn time cut down per minute of this thing being active, which roughly maths to like 6.5 seconds per second. See how many propane tanks it takes. I guess I'll just start by cracking them open and letting the fire go. My findings that the impact is insignificant. It should have some effect, as everything seems to have an effect, but this is not big enough that you need to actually consider it. Okay, the bottle. So I smashed a bunch of these over like 1.5 minutes, and they did eventually respawn like 13.5 minutes early, but you know, it has some effect. Now for the clown doll, honking the nose and blowing them up. When spawned and exploded in unreasonable amounts that you'll never experience, there is a somewhat sizable impact on the respawns. However, if you're just using one, which is usually as much as people use, you're not going to have to worry about this at all. Just a minor decrease in time. I did test this one earlier. This was one of the ones I initially messed with before I started making the video, because this is something people often carry around and mess with. It also has uses, like you can open doors with it for fun. This also, I found, if you just point it at an enraged duck that's coming at you, will completely repel them, and you'll take no damage. But now you have to consider, is it worth making the enemies respawn faster? Because this does have some impact. It's not quite as crazy as the ice saw, but it's definitely there. Especially considering this is another infinite item that you can just hold. Two minutes and 30 seconds about, and if you account for that time being removed, that is 12.5 minutes of respawn time removed in 2 minutes and 30 seconds. So not super fast like the saw, but decent. Okay, so the gramophone and a lot of other noise items. I don't know exactly how to activate. I'm pretty sure it's RNG. Don't know if it's by holding them, hitting them. I guess I'll just mess around with them and see. I'm just tickling them, seeing if they activate. You might have to hold them for like a specific amount of time. Yeah, so testing these RNG items is kind of miserable. You just have to hold it, and it's just a chance it'll turn on. The chance is not great. So very time consuming to test these. And the effect is kind of negligible. I will super hyper speed up the massive amount of time this took to test. But all items that turn on just randomly like this, the TV, the gramophone, and stuff, the grandfather clock, kind of negligible effect on the respawns of enemies. So I don't think you have to care too much on the risk of these turning on. Even if they do, it's not a big impact. Yeah, so I'm speeding this up by, I think, 1,000%. I just sat there and I just held these and waited. Super miserable. I think the overall change in the spawn time, it was like somewhat noticeable. It was a few minutes off at least, but I think it was like 3, maybe 4 activations. Super miserable test. I don't want to do it again. The conclusion is still clear. It doesn't really matter that much. If it turns on, you know, and you think it might cause something to respawn, you might want to watch out. Because down deeper into the stage, once you've spent a certain amount of minutes on it, the respawns will get faster. So it might have an impact at that point. But early on, it's like, it's not going to have a big impact. Just to make sure this wasn't some cool thing, I did try the bonfire trick. I shouldn't even call it a trick. Where you just stack a ton of doors in the fireplaces on Headman Manor, and it just makes annoying noises. I was wondering if those noises counted as like real noises, and I sat there and I just waited. I think this was 4 doors in the fire, and there was like no change. So this is either insanely negligible to the point where it doesn't matter, or literally nothing. Here's a bit of the radio test on 10 times speed. Pretty much the exact same deal as the gramophones, just sitting there, holding them, praying they turn on. They don't turn on. Even if they do, barely impacts the spawn, so kind of just the same. This is a pretty uncommon situation, but I wanted to also see if the explosive barrel would significantly reduce the respawn timer, because it is a pretty big explosion, you know, it's an explosive barrel. So what if you put an indestructible drone on it and then just smash it around? Because you can kill enemies like that. It'll keep exploding and it'll keep doing damage. And it also has the bug where when you take off the drone, it explodes like 1,000,000 times. So I did want to see if that was a thing. It was not. Might have some impact, but it's not very big. Tried the flamethrower fire spout, and I emptied a bunch of these, and I did not notice any sizable impact or any impact on the monster spawns. And seeing as how you'll probably only run into 1 or 2 of these, if even 2, I don't know if I've ever seen 2 on one map, then yeah, if 1 doesn't do it, probably you don't have to care about it. The guitar. I don't even have to speed this one up, because this one is actually pretty impactful. So this one is controllable, which means you can choose to do it or not do it. It's completely up to you. If you want to just sit here and spam the chords to force respawn monsters, you can. Or if you don't want to spawn them, you can also do that. Spamming the hell out of it for about 30 seconds skips about 14 minutes of respawn time. So, very, very strong effect. The Scream Doll. This one I thought would be faster, but it only ended up being 1 minute and 40 seconds of holding. Cut down the respawn. So, 1 minute and 40 seconds off of 15 minutes, which is 13 minutes, 20 seconds. So 1 minute 40 cut off 13 minutes, 20 of respawn time. You don't usually have to carry this for that long, but if you do walk around with it in your hands, like all the way to an extract, it might have an impact. Here was another soul-crushing test. This one was for the television, pretty much the same as the gramophone. This turns on randomly as you're holding it, seemingly, and minor impacts on spawn speed. 1000% speed here, and this is only part of the test. Very miserable, very soul crush. At least there's not too many more of these types of props that I have to go through. And just for good measure, I did test putting an indestructible drone on a big, fragile pot that makes loud noises when smashed, and then just smashed it for a while. Inconclusive, might have no impact. Now for the piano. I can actually comment on this one in real time, even though I did kind of knock it over here. This one is pretty fast. This is not a commonly encountered valuable in the first place, since I believe it is exclusive to the Headman Manor and is kind of uncommon. So if you do want to play this thing and absolutely spam it, you can respawn the monsters pretty quick. And the piano also does have a pretty decent range in which it will attract monsters around it to the noise. So this one is viable to intentionally spawn things. Be careful when you're playing a song. Same deal for the harp, really, exclusive to the same map currently. And it will allow you to summon monsters from the dead by playing it. So play whatever song you want, spam the hell out of it, and you'll get your monsters. It also has a range that will attract enemy attention. I believe it's pretty similar to the piano. I tried the wizard staff, bashing it an amount of times that you would never do in a game, and did not notice any difference. So I want to say this has no impact. The grandfather clock, a lot like the gramophone, the TV, the radio, is pretty insignificant in terms of monster spawn timer reduction, but it should have some effect, just not enough to consider at any point. So just grab all the clocks you want. The gun actually did eventually respawn them, but it took 140 shots, and I didn't even time it, because that's a lot of shots, and I don't think that's happening in a game. So it does have an effect, but it's not crazy, and you should probably just use it. I wanted to try just throwing a ton of stun grenades, which was extra annoying because I forgot to take off toggle and I was too lazy to change it. And I did not get a good result. I don't think these matter. I was wondering if the shotgun might have a bigger impact because it's a shotgun, make loud noise, but it didn't seem to be that significant. Might be the same as the pistol. I didn't fully do 140 shots to get the equivalent test, as this is much slower to shoot, and it's kind of just insignificant. You only get 3 shots normally anyway. That's all of them that I feel like covering. Follow my Twitch channel, subscribe to my YouTube.